Hi everyone, my name is Francino V.A. Lagas and our topic for today is about Mahayana Buddhism. But first, let us know what is Mahayana Buddhism.
Mahayana Buddhism. Mahayana Buddhism believing itself at the more genuine version of Buddhist teachings. Mahayana Buddhism has diverged into numerous schools, with each developing its own canon and rituals since its founding more than 2,000 years ago.
Mahayana is the name of one of the two primary branches of Buddhism. The word is formulated from the Sanskrit Maha meaning great or large, and Yana meaning vehicle. Taken together, the term can be translated as the Great Vehicle. Mahayana was the form of Buddhism that was most rudely adopted beyond India. By the 5th century, it was widespread across Asia from Afghanistan to China, Mongolia, Korea, Japan, and from Tibet. Mahayana Buddhism continued to develop over the succeeding centuries as waves of influence continued to spread outward from India. In addition, local culture was a major factor in the development of regional types of Mahayana, resulting in the traditions as diverse as Zen in Japan and Vajrayana Buddhism in Tibet. A pre-Mahayana form of Buddhism called Theravada Buddhism still remains popular in Sri Lanka and mainland Southeast Asia today. However, the vast majority of Buddhists in historical and contemporary times have been followers of Mahayana. Notable Mahayana leaders in the current era included the 4th Dalai Lama and the late Thich Nhat Hanh, despite having their roots in Siddhartha Gautama's fundamental teachings. The two main schools of Buddhism, the Theravada and the Mahayana, fundamentally different approaches to finding freedom from the cycle of reincarnation. They could be seen as two distinct expressions of the fundamental ideas of the historical Buddha. For instance, Mahayana Buddhism seeks to expand the scope of religious authority in contrast to the Theravada school of thinking. Due to its acceptance of more conservative theological beliefs, it has garnered enormous popularity among the general public and became one of the most effective missionary movements.
Historical background. During the 3rd century before Christ era, a number of subtle variations began to take place in Buddhism at a time when the Mauryan king Ashoka was propagating Buddhist gospels through missionary efforts. Hopfi 1983. The Mahasamhika of the Great Sangha, one of the early Buddhist schools, may have been the source for the initial growth of Mahayana Buddhism, especially during the Second Buddhist Council that occurred 100 years after Buddha's parinirvana.
During the council, a religious schemes between the Mahasamhika and the Istavira Nikaya sect of the elders, another major Buddhist school occurred, which is considered a historical event. These new ideas eventually came to fruition, resulting in a new form of Buddhism that differed significantly from the original teachings of Siddhartha Gautama and those accepted by Theravada Buddhists. In a nutshell, Mahayana Buddhism arose a new religion. These new developments within the newfound Buddhist sect include a variety of ideas about the original founder and great teacher Siddhartha Gautama himself. To begin, Mahayana Buddhists believe that Siddhartha secretly taught key principles to select individuals such as most dedicated disciples or the most faithful who could fully interpret these teachings over time. Happy 1983, Lodge 2001. Siddhartha Gautama was not the sole Buddha. Other divine beings arrived in our world before Siddhartha. Some after him and still others will arrive in the future. These beings primarily came to earth to alleviate people's suffering and lead them to salvation. Many followers were impressed by this novel concept because they can now revere these beings, study their lives, build temples, and develop an innovative belief system complete with rituals and hymns, among other things. Happy 1983! Because deities or local gods can be treated as manifestations or reincarnations of Buddha. Mahayana Buddhist missionaries were able to penetrate new places without fear of relations from native religions over time. Mahayana Buddhism was absorbed other religions.
So these are the Mahayana Buddhism concept map. In our next topic, we're gonna talk about sacred scriptures, worship and observances, beliefs and doctrines, and subdivisions.
Hi, I'm Rujel Kim Latras, and together with me, we will discover what are the sacred scriptures of Mahayana Buddhism. So each religion has its own sacred scriptures. For example, in Judaism, they have the Tanakh. In Christianity, we have the Bible composed of Old and New Testament. And in Islam, they have the Quran. And now, we will discover what scriptures did Mahayana Buddhism considered as a sacred one. While the Mahayana branch accept the canonical texts of the Theravada school, such as the Tripitaka, or the Sanskrit word for three baskets, which is the collection of Buddha's teaching. It also has a wide array of philosophical and devotional texts, especially since Mahayana Buddhism initially became more receptive to change and to subsequent innovation even from indigenous culture. Mahayana Buddhism includes many sacred writings, which are nearly identical in content to the Pali Canon of Theravada sect. The canon of Mahayana Buddhism also consists of the three Pitaka, namely the Sutra Pitaka or the discourse, the Vinaya Pitaka or the discipline, and the Abhidharma Pitaka or the ultimate doctrine. Although they have similarities, Mahayana Buddhists have teachings or sutras not present in Theravada school, and the followers believe they have recovered the original teaching of Buddha. And if Theravada use Pali language, in Mahayana, they use Sanskrit terms. Sanskrit is the sacred language of Hinduism, the language of classical Hindu philosophy, and of historical texts of Buddhism and Jainism. And Mahayana school possesses innumerable figures often lacking in Theravada literature, including the Bodhisattva, demons, divinities, and other spirits. And one of the popular and prominent Mahayana Buddhist text or sutra is the Lotus Sutra, or the Sadharma Pundarika Sutra, that literally means correct Dharma with Lotus Sutra, or Sutra of the Lotus of the Wonderful Law in Sanskrit. A sutra pertains to one of the discourse of the historical Buddha that comprise the basic text of Buddha's sacred writings. The famed Lotus Sutra is one of the most important texts in Mahayana Buddhism. and is the foundation of the Pure Land schools. Because the lotus grows in muddy water, it symbolizes the purity of enlightened mind arising amidst the suffering of samsara. The Lotus Sutras strongly focuses on the faith and devotions for attaining nirvana, even though Mahayana doesn't focus on absolute teaching and favors to attain nirvana by understanding the teachings of Lord Buddha. And they believe that these sutras were kept for 500 years and reintroduced only during the Fourth Buddhist Council in Kashmir in 78 CE. A key idea within the influential sutra is that all people equally and inherently possesses the so-called Buddha nature or Buddhahood, which is the condition of complete happiness and freedom from fear and illusions. In short, the attainment of enlightenment is open to all people, regardless of gender, race, social status, and education. So those are the scriptures that Mahayana Buddhism considered as the sacred one.
Mahayana Buddhist tradition extends the doctrine of dependent origination with the concept of antanisanyata. This concept applies the doctrine of the absence of self, anatman, to all elements of existence. Consequently, nothing can be said to exist or not exist. Buddhism is 2,500 years. Siya ay si Siddhartha Gautama pwede din mag-adapt sa culture, economic, context, and politics. Theravada Buddhism, only the historical Buddha and past Buddhas are accepted and very limited emphasis on Trikaya Buddha has three bodies, which is Dharmakaya, Jambukagaya, and Nirmanikaya, and the table below summarizes the nature. The first body is Dharmakaya, the nature or aspect of body of absolute of truth, and the next body is Sambhukakaya, body that experiences bliss of enlightenment. The next is Nirmanikaya, body that manifests the world embodiment of Dharmakaya in a human form. And the next is Bodhisattvas, are enlightened beings who have put of entering paradise in order to help others attain enlightenment. There are many different Bodhisattvas, but the most famous in China is Avalokitesvara, known in Chinese as Guanyin. Bodhisattvas are usually depicted as less austere or inward than the Buddha. Bodhisattva Sanskrit, Pali, Bodhisattva, one whose goal is awakening, and Buddhism, one who seeks awakening Buddhi, hence, an individual on the path to becoming a Buddha. Bumi ay isang Sanskrit salita para sa lupa o lupa, at ang listahan ng 10 bumis ay 10 lupain. Isang Bodhisattva ay dapat dumaan sa daan patungo sa Buddha. Ang bumis ay mahalaga sa maagang Budistang Mahayana. Ang isang listahan ng 10 bumis ay lumilitaw sa ilang mga teksto ng Mahayana. Bagaman hindi sila laging magkatulad, ang bumis ay nauugnay din sa mga Ang Bodhisattva ay nagpapalaki sa sila paramita, ang pagiging perpekto ng moralidad na nagaganap sa walang pag-ibig na pag-ibig para sa lahat ng nilalang. Siya ay purified ng immoral na ugali at disposition.
Worship and observances. Buddhism integrates an assortment of religious practices and devotional rituals with the objective of aiding worshippers in their journey toward enlightenment, bringing blessings to each and everyone. In Buddhist temples, they pray and chant to pay their respect to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, such as Avalokiteshvara, Manjuri, and Amitabha. They also offer vegetarian food and light incense to pay homage to these important divine beings. Mahayana temples are sacred spaces. While only a simple temple layout can be seen, Theravada Buddhism with an image of Siddhartha Gautama as the focal point of worship. Mahayana rituals can be quite elaborate with the addition of other disciples of Siddhartha Gautama and important Bodhisattvas. Worshippers also recite chants and undertake pilgrimage to sites of Buddhism importance. Meditational activities are fundamental in almost all popular forms of Buddhism. For Theravada Buddhism and Zen Buddhism, the practice of meditation is the only means to attain liberation. With the introduction of Mahayana Buddhism in other places, local culture influenced the development of Mahayana Buddhism practices. The lotus that symbolizes purity, the 8 spokes, wheels that represent the Dharma, and the different hand gestures or mudras are important symbols for Mahayana Buddhism.
Subdivisions. The more philosophical side from Indian Mahayana Buddhism was developed within the context of two major of schools, namely the Madhyamika and the Yogacara. Adams, 1965. Madhyamika intermediate whose adherents stressed the information of human perception to handle the truth of the which ultimately real beyond any duality. Yogacara, practice of yoga, thinkers emphasize that the truth a human being perceives does not exist. Mahayana Buddhism consists of variety of schools and family of religions, including the Pure Land sect in Tuatip, sex rationality sect, socio-political sect, and the Tibetan Buddhism. The Pure Land sect. Pure Land Buddhism began in India around the 2nd century BCE, spread to China by the 2nd century CE, and reached Japan around 6th century CE. Pure Land of the West, also known Sokvati. Amitabha, the god who services over a western paradise, is the focus of this sect. In Japan, by simplifying sect practices such as those done by the monk Honen in the 12th century, attracted many followers to the sect. Judo Buddhism or Judo Shu, the Pure Land school, founded in 1175. An offshoot of Pure Land Buddhism is the Shin Buddhism or Judo Shin Shu, true Pure Land school, founded by another Japanese monk, Shinran, during the 13th century. The Intuitive sect. The establishment of Intuitive sect of Buddhism can be traced around 6th century CE to the work of Indian monk named Bodhidharma, whose life stories are shrouded with mysteries and numerous legends. Murphy, 1949. This concept entered China from India and carried onward to Korea and Japan. In China, it came to known as Shan Buddhism has close affinity with Taoist philosophy because both are kinds of mysticism. In Japan, it reached its peak with the development of Zen, which is a blend of Indian Mahayana Buddhism and Taoism. The followers of this school are called Meditative Buddhists.
Good day everyone, my name is Tom Newgood and I will be the one who discuss the topic The Rationalist Sikh. The Rationalist Sikh. The Rationalist Buddhist school of thought called Tentai emerged around the 6th century CE, with its name originating from a mountain in southeastern China, where its founder Chenai or Zei. According to my research, Chenai lived from 538 to 597 of the Common Era. He developed an interest in Buddhism early in life and went on to become a Buddhist monk and teacher. His manual, The Great Stopping and Staying, is one of the most important works of Tentai Buddhism and was frequently relied upon by followers of Zen and Pure Land Buddhism. Chinai emphasized that act of studying and contemplation were both vital for spiritual enlightenment. So the next is social political sect. A Japanese Buddhist monk by the name of Nichiren Daishonin, who lived during the 13th century during the Kamakura period, began to teach that the path toward attaining enlightenment rested solely on the devotion to the Lotus Sutra, Nichiren San Lotus Buddhism, which is purely a Japanese phenomenon, perceives itself as the only rightful version of Buddhism. Nichiren Buddhism teach that individuals must take responsibility to enhance themselves or what is called human revolution, and in turn to improve the world's lot. Nichiren taught that the historical Buddha was identical with the original eternal Buddha and that inasmuch as all human beings partake of the Buddha nature, all human beings are manifestations of the eternal. The Nichiren sect of Buddhism is an example of a religious group that came to have an effect in the socio-political dimension of Japan. Present-day schools of Nichiren Buddhism include Soka Gakkai, Nichiren Soshi, and Nichiren Su. So the next is Tibetan Buddhism. Buddhism was officially introduced into Tibet around the 7th century CE during the reign of Songtsen Gampo, considered the founder of the Tibetan Empire. Tibetan Buddhism inherited many of traditions of late Indian Buddhism, including a strong emphasis on monasticism. Tibet was once home to the largest Buddhism monasteries in the world. A sophisticated scholastic philosophy and elaborate forms of tantric practice. Tibetan Buddhism borrowed tantric and shamanic attributes as well as elements from Tibet's native religion called Bon. A pre-Buddhistic religion, Bon was a kind of shamanism where spirits or deities were revered. The four major schools of Tibetan Buddhism include Nyingma, Kangyo, Sakya, and Geloi. So that's all. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Ara Irobin and I'm going to present a selected issue. Sa loob ng maraming siglo, parehong inangkin ng China sa India ang Tibet bilang mga teritoryo ng by updates. Si David ay halos nasiyahan sa ilang antas ng kalayaan habang siyam sa mga claimant ay ang nagpilit sa kanilang pag-angkin noong 1950. Ngayong paman, ang China ay naanex ang Tibet at tinanggihan ang tinatawag na 7 Point. Ang 7 Point is the 7-point agreement of the Central People's Government and the local government of Tibet on all measures for the peaceful liberation of Tibet. Ang tinatawag na 7 point ay ito ang kasunduan ng pamalahan ng ika-14 ng Dalai Lama na paulit-ulit na tinanggihan ng Dalai Lama ang dokumentong ito. Ang Dalai Lama ng Tibet ay isang linya ng leader spiritual ng paaralang Gelug ng Tibet noong Budhismo at ang dating pinuno ng ika-17 na siglo at 1959, ang Dalai Lama ay naghain sa kanyang bid na patalsikin ang puppet na pamumuno ng China habang pag-aalsa ng Tibet ay natatalo ng mas makapangyarihan. Sa pagpatupad ng Get Leap Forward ni Mao Zedong mula 1958 hanggang 1961, ang kampanyang socio-economics ng China na baguhin ang bansa sa isang sosyalistang lipunan ng 200,000 hanggang 1 milyon na mga Tibetan na trahedya na namatay sa panahon ng Rebolusyong Pangkultura ni Mao Zedong. Si Mao Zedong ay former President of the People's Republic of China. Mao Zedong, also known as Chairman Mao, was a Chinese Communist revolutionary who was the founder of the People's Republic of China, which he led as the chairman of the Chinese Communist Party from the establishment of the PRC, or Professional Regulation Commission, until his death in 1976. Mula 1959 hanggang 1977, halos lahat ng mga elemento ng Tibetan Buddhism ay nabura habang maraming daang libong Tibetan ang napuno. Ang iba ay nadala sa papatapon sa pagbisita ng kasalukuyan. Ang Dalai Lama ay patuloy na nangangaral ng mensahe sa pag-asa at kapayapaan sa ibang bansa. And let's proceed to the engaged activism. Ritual suicides led by Buddhist monks. Buddhist monks is called Bek, who is an ordained male in Buddhist monasticism. The main task of the Buddhist monastic community is to preserve and practice the teaching of the Buddha. The ritual suicide led by Buddhist monks ay naganap noong ika-2 siglo bilang isang paraan ng protesta sa mga aksyon ng pamahalaan. Halimbawa, isang krisis ang naganap sa pagitan ng mga Buddhista at Timog Vietnam's na pamamahalaan ni Ngo Diem noong 1960 nang mapakalaking epekto sa politika, militansya at pagpaparaya sa relihiyon noong 1944 noong resulta ng mga pag-uusig na isinagawa ng gobyerno laban sa mga Buddhist monhe at nagsimulang tumumbas sa rehimen na kalaunan ay resulta sa pagtupad sa sarili ni Ting Guangdong at ang isang partidong mapolitika ay binuo pa ni Sukha Gakkai, ang pumieto na naging pangatlo sa pinakamakapangyarihan sa Japan.